extra, extraordinary. That means you're extra, extra, extraordinary.
Good morning, everyone. If I can have you grab your seats, we are going to get going. So welcome to the start of another academic year and the 31st Convocation for Salt Lake Community College. It is a pleasure to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. So joining us today is Brady Southwick. He is the chair of the SLCC Board of Trustees, and he is a remarkable advocate for Salt Lake Community College and our mission, and he's here to celebrate and say a few words. So please help me welcome him with a fabulous Bruin welcome. Chair Southwick.
Hey, thank you. Welcome, and happy 75 years for Salt Lake Community College. I'm really pleased to be part of this remarkable institution, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. This has actually been one of the highlights of my life. I've served on the board for 6, almost 7 years, and it has been fantastic working with the administration, working with all of you, and then also seeing the impact that you have on the students and on the community. And I am so grateful for all that you do. I have rarely ran into anyone that has had any association with Salt Lake Community College that hasn't just sung your praises and been so grateful for this institution and for the impact that you've had in their lives. This is a place where people build bright futures for themselves and also for their family. And this has a ripple effect on the rest of the community. It helps the economy. I believe that you are helping people become better people, better citizens, better spouses, better family members. And it's remarkable the impact that you have. And so we're so grateful for that. As we start off this new academic year with today's Convocation address, as is customary, we will begin with the reading of the Salt Lake Community College Land Acknowledgement. So Salt Lake Community College is located on the Native American shared territory of the Goshute, Navajo, Paiute, Shoshone, and Ute people. We honor the original ancestors of this land and also offer respect to other tribal communities. We acknowledge this history to cultivate respect for and advocate with our Indigenous students and communities still connected to this land. Again, let me just say thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and for this upcoming year. You'll continue to have a big impact on people's lives, and we're so grateful for that, and that is all. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Southwick, for being with us today. I'd also like to recognize Yvette Donaso. Yvette, will you stand? Yvette is one of our newest trustees and made it a point to be with us at Convocation today. So thank you to Yvette. We have a wonderful, remarkably strong board of trustees who really believes in our mission. And whether you ever think you'll ever be in a room with the board of trustees, you need to know that their impact is really important to us. And they do a great job of helping advocate and champion Salt Lake Community College. So as Chair Southwick just reminded us, in just a few short weeks, we will be celebrating the official 75th anniversary of Salt Lake Community College. And given this milestone, this year's convocation theme is Then and Now. As we showcase what's to come this year and bring everyone up to speed, we're also going to take a moment to link our current efforts to the past. We will be looking back on the path we've traveled, starting from our first days as Salt Lake Area Vocational School, and we'll hear more about the direction we will take together as we continue this important journey. So let's start with a video showcasing our past 7.5 decades as one of Utah's most influential institutions of higher learning.
Let's review the assignment. You are to write a script for a video about Salt Lake Community College. And remember, your video can't be any longer than 15 minutes. Oh, I know. Bryce has already said that it's difficult to depict everything that goes on here in 15 minutes.
I think I used the word impossible.
Uno, dos, tres, four.
For these people and thousands like them, Salt Lake Trade Tech today assumes a vital part in preparing them to join the ranks of skilled craftsmen and technicians.
Providing access to quality education for each student demands a wide variety of individualized methods of instruction and excellent teaching skills.
For generations, a single idea has held us together. Community. It has not just been part of our name. It has defined who we are and what we put first. You.
We encourage you to take full advantage of the opportunities and programs offered and recognize your potential for contributing to the goals and objectives of Salt Lake Community College.
Can you summarize SLCC in one sentence?
Well, I like it here because they don't just tell you how to do something, they show you.
So for our student leaders, let me just describe. That was a television at the end, and that was a phone. That thing with the cord, that was a phone. Okay, just so we're all on the same page. Thank you to Matt Whitaker and everyone in institutional marketing for creating that great piece. As many of you know, we also have a tradition of starting off the year with a poem by the Salt Lake Community College Poet Laureate. The position of a poet laureate is just one of the many things that makes us unique at SLCC, and I'm pleased to introduce our newest poet laureate, Brenda Siskowski, who will serve in this role through 2025. Brenda is an assistant professor of English on our Redwood campus. Her poems and award-winning essays have appeared widely in print and online journals, including the Colorado Review, the New England Review, and Poetry Daily, among others. In keeping with our then and now theme, we're going to do something a little different for this year's poetry presentation. We're going to hear two poems. The first was written by noted author, poet, teacher, and supporter of SLCC, Emmylou Thane, for whom our Thane Center is named. If you don't know, the Thane Center for Student Life, Leadership, and Community Engagement debuted in 1994 and encourages both students and employees to build community through service and compassion. Emmylou's history and legacy is rich. She is the author of 13 books, including poetry, fiction, essays, and travel stories, and she was widely anthologized and recognized internationally for her focus on kinship and peace. Her words to the hymn, "Where Can I Turn for Peace?" have been translated into dozens of languages and broadly recorded, as have her poems about the war and environment. She was also recognized as our Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters recipient in 2003. In honor of this remarkable woman, Brenda will read Emmylou's poem titled "First Rain in a Dry Season," after which we'll hear Brenda's first poem as SLC's Poet Laureate titled "Unaccountable Bones." Brenda.
So, welcome. I just want to say, first of all, that it is an immense honor for me to represent Salt Lake Community College in a way that's very close to my heart. I'm very grateful for that. And I'm also grateful to President Huftelin because she already explained and gave a bio on Emmylou Thane, so I can skip that part. I will read Emmylou Thane's poem first, as stated, and then I just wanted to explain just a little bit about the poem that I wrote. I was thinking about the theme, then and now. I was told it was loose, so if at any point we find ourselves in the future, no need to panic. But the way that I kind of connected what I wrote back to the past and back to Emmylou Thane is to use a fairly new poetic form called the Golden Shovel. Anybody heard of the Golden Shovel? Fan of the Golden Shovel? Okay. If anyone becomes enamored of the form, I'm happy to start a writing group of Golden Shovel poets. Basically what it is, Terrence Hayes, a really, really stellar poet, invented the form, and what he did was he took Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, "We Real Cool," and it was in his head day and night because he was teaching his 5-year-old to memorize it. So in his book, Lighthead, he has a poem, Golden Shovel, and he took every word of Gwendolyn Brooks' poem and he used it as the end word to each line. So what I did was I took one line from Emmylou Thane's poem that I'll read, and every word in that line is the end word for the line in my poem, plus the last 4 words, because I want it to be 14 lines in homage to a sonnet. So that's a lot of explanation, but you may hear some echo with some of the words. So the first poem, this is Emmylou Thane's poem. It came out in her book On Slim Unaccountable Bones, published in 1974. It's called First Rain in a Dry Season. The wind left its sky and hushed hope like water let loose through our hollows. It snatched at limbs and sent caravans of leaves to taste the burned ground. The birds closed their mouths in the dust. For an hour, the sky swelled, and the green earth moved like part of the sea, and we stood in our dryness waiting. At last, even the aspen were drunk in their thirst, their heads shaved with wanting the wind, and the life that had been eluding us came. Flashing in the gray night, liquid strips of laughter peeled the sky onto the shudder of leaves, and mists nodded to each other like sleep. Flowers grew wands, changed shapes, and diffused like old ink. The rain started to come forever, and there was no place left for expecting. So when it all began to fall upward, surprising us touch, stretching itself back into silence, and pulling the trees with it, we hung here by our soft hair, moving gently, dripping fine green shoots. And this one, this is my poem called Unaccountable Bones, which is taken from the title of her book. And it has an epigraph from Carl Sandburg, and that is, "Poetry is the synthesis of hyacinths and biscuits." Blue hyacinth. Sincerity is no longer avowed in the language of flowers, floriography preserved in old books like faded cursive. We grew wary, didn't we, of such convoluted devices. Plastic wands corked on cloth tulips, the past's quicksilver spell exchanged for illusions of constancy. A metamorphic present reshapes the old continents. Purple conjunction of hyacinth and biscuit. Some wild collisions aren't meant to be diffused. That's metaphor's truth. Who doubts a tinned sardine is like a fresh tattoo? Smoked silver relics scoured of the old tarnish, flat eyes opening to needle. Packed brine is the blue ink sewing its burning thread into skin. Oil or sweat dripping onto the clean table. Each spine fanned in the tail fin, fine as an eyelash. An art of sincerity preserved in the green pond, brimming with koi, a convolution of bamboo shoots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda, for helping us start the school year on such an inspiring note. We look forward to hearing from you for many years to come. I'd also like to just say that hopefully sometime you'll be able to meet Denny Trabert and Warner. The Thane family continues to be very much a part of our institution, and Timothy Davis and his team in student life also make them feel so welcome. So if you ever get to meet them, make sure you acknowledge Emma Lou and her fine legacy. Today and every day, students are at the center of our work. Our vision is to strengthen the communities we serve through the success of our students. And we have long had student leaders who have worked alongside staff and faculty to establish vision and direction for the college. During the college's very first days, students were elected through their classroom with ballots to provide a voice for their needs and concerns. Since then, our student leaders have continued to be elected to serve and have steadfastly provided invaluable insight and inspiration for nearly all areas of the college. We have been fortunate to have extraordinary and visionary student leaders for every one of our 75 years, and this year is no exception. So help me welcome the 2023-2024 student leaders. Please stand as I introduce you. Joyce Wambui, President of the Student Association. Emily Orton, Vice President for Academic Pathways, and Mars Davis, Vice President for Equity and Diversity. It's an all-woman band this year, and we love that. Thank you. Since 1948, SLCC has been managed also by wise leaders, some of whom literally built the college from the ground up. Our early leaders fought for legislative funding and legitimacy during the college's earliest days as Salt Lake Area Vocational School. Others oversaw periods of rapid growth where new buildings and campuses were springing from the ground to provide much of the physical infrastructure that we use today. And finally, some were laser focused on developing top quality programs and degrees, including general education courses to create Utah's first and largest comprehensive community college. Today, we still benefit from knowledgeable and visionary leaders at the executive cabinet level who continually push the college into new territory and work to make SLCC the best it can be. Please stand as I introduce you. Interim Provost for Academic Affairs, Dr. Jason Pickavants. Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Brett Perazzi. Vice President for Finance and Administration and CFO, Chris Martin. Vice President for Institutional Equity, Inclusion, and Transformation, Dr. Juwan Kadri. Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness, Jeff Aird. Vice President for Institutional Advancement, Abby McNulty. And Vice President for Government and Community Relations, Tim Sheehan. Let's hear it for all of our executive cabinet members. I'd also love to recognize our academic deans. So deans, if you could please stand as I call your names. Dean Jeffrey Coker, Gail Miller School of Business. Dr. Craig Caldwell, School of Science, Mathematics, and Engineering. Dr. Roderick Land, School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Dr. Jennifer Saunders, School of Technical and Professional Specialties and Salt Lake Technical College. Richard Scott, School of Arts, Communication, and Media. And Dr. Robert Pettit, School of Health Sciences. Thank you, deans, for all that you do for our students, faculty. Thank you so much. I also want to recognize this year's faculty and staff leaders, so please stand when I introduce you. Kristen Taylor, our Faculty Association President. Adam Dastrup, our Faculty Senate President. And Brandy Mayer, our Staff Association President. Please help me thank them for their leadership. Now it's your turn. If this is your first SLCC convocation, please stand so that we can welcome you to our institution. Woo! Thank you. That's fabulous. We have some very new community members. Please introduce yourself to them, make them feel welcome, and thank you for being with us on this great day. So each year I select a quote that serves as our guide for the work that we're going to do together throughout the year. The quote, as many of you know, is also carved into the respective stones on various campuses to hopefully inspire and motivate employees and students alike. This year's quote is from American naturalist and writer John Burroughs. John Burroughs was first and foremost a farmer, but he grew to be a trusted and sought out naturalist and essayist. And he's credited with inventing the first nature essay. He also famously said, "Leap and the net will appear." I'm guessing most of us have some experience with this. At some time in our lives, we have taken leaps of faith. I'm seeing head nods, so this is a good thing. And we're not necessarily knowing the outcomes or how we're going to overcome certain challenges, but we do it anyway, and somehow we find the support to make it work. This college has been leaping for 3/4 of a century. Many times, leaders were unsure if the institution would survive its troubles, but with support and trusted employees working collaboratively, we are still here, stronger than ever. I hope the quote will be a source of motivation for you and our students throughout this next academic year. So let's move into the state of the college and address a little history. The first convocation for Salt Lake Community College was held in 1992. We had only recently become a comprehensive community college, and then President Frank Budd believed the college had an image problem, and he was right. Some areas of campus still had signs that read Utah Technical College. Some departments continued to use UTC letterhead long after the institution had become SLCC. So to help affirm and codify the school's status as a community college, President Budd began this tradition of convocation to kick off each academic year. The theme for that year was that SLCC was a true community college, serving Utah with technical, transfer, and community-oriented education. Our first convocation included a parade music, and a visit from former Utah Governor Norm Bangerter. President Budd also gave a State of the College address, a tradition we continue today. For years, we have had the mission of helping students learn skills for a successful career and upward mobility, and we've been helping students successfully transfer toward a four-year degree and beyond. SLCC can trace its roots to the establishment of the GI Bill, which provided educational assistance to veterans who were coming home from World War II. The bill also helped grow America's middle class during a recession that occurred immediately after the war. And on that first day, we welcomed 246 students, most of whom were veterans. The school's motto was learn to earn, learn to live. It's got a little ring to it, doesn't it? Salt Lake Area Vocational School offered 16 programs, some of which are no longer relevant. That makes sense. But many we still teach in some form with the benefit of more advanced curriculum and equipment. The programs we still include welding, fashion design, culinary arts, auto mechanics, and nursing. For most of our history, we've served as Utah's premier technical college, and early on, we were required to have at least 75% of all of our courses be technical courses. But in 1987, the state legislature officially changed our mission to be a comprehensive community college, a decision that was considered very controversial at the time. As an institution, we've actually grown into our own, providing education and training to millions of students who've gained the skills and knowledge needed to build prosperity for themselves and their families. So to give you an idea of how far we've come, consider the following stats. We've grown from 16 programs to 190 programs. Probably too many, but we're working on that. At our first commencement ceremony in 1949, we honored 9 graduates. Can you imagine 9 graduates in the Maverick Center? That would be great. Last May, we joyfully sent off 3,089 graduates, 237 who were nursing students. In the late 40s, there was a critical nursing shortage, and SLCC played an important role in training healthcare workers. Does that sound familiar? We still play an essential role in training nurses and other healthcare workers, as the demand for these professionals has never, ever been as strong. And just as we did on our opening day, SLCC still provides Utah students with training in skilled trades through Salt Lake Technical College and the School for Professional and Technical Specialties. In addition to our 75th anniversary, we achieved a few other milestones this year. The Larry H. and Gail Miller Family Foundation generously bestowed $10 million to reshape and remake our business building and business college programs. We opened our Harriman campus with our good partners at University of Utah. And most notably, we are bringing the college's first ever comprehensive fundraising campaign to a very successful conclusion. In 2017, we set the ambitious goal of raising $40 million by our 75th birthday. As of today, we have smashed that goal, and our development department and many of you have helped us raise $50.1 million. We have a couple of weeks before we formally conclude the campaign, but we are thrilled that thousands of donors opted to say I'm in with SLCC to share in our vision of bringing exceptional education to all. I'm going to now turn the time to several cabinet members for updates. We'll first hear from Chris Martin, our Vice President of Finance and Administration. He'll provide us an update on projects that have been going on in the facilities, as well as discuss initiatives that have been undertaken by our People and Workplace Culture team. Chris.
Good morning. Until the Redwood campus opened in 1967, the college was housed in a reclaimed laundry facility in downtown Salt Lake called the Troy Laundry Building. The building was a mere 76,315 square feet, and eventually the building became inadequate for all of our needs. Today, Salt Lake Community College has 9 campuses, totaling 2,599,166 square feet. But from the beginning, SLCC has benefited from exceptionally talented and hardworking employees in facilities. The members of our current facilities team do truly fantastic work. This dynamic team ensures that every single day we have clean, well-maintained, and beautiful campuses that inspire our students and us to be our very best. They also oversee the construction and remodeling of buildings, which ultimately allows us to bring the transformative power of education to more people all across the Salt Lake Valley. Facilities has led several high-profile construction projects this year, including, as we just heard, the Harriman campus. And for many of us, it's been fun to watch the development of the new technical art building taking place here on the Redwood campus. They also have a few other really exciting projects underway, including the South City campus, which will soon see a state-of-the-art virtual production studio. This brand new technology will allow students to virtually film from exciting locales without even needing to travel. Some of us will be using this space for vacations. What's more is this technology is quickly becoming the industry standard, but it is not yet taught at many colleges across the United States. In fact, SLCC is the first college in Utah to offer students direct training with this exciting new technology. Recent growth in our surgical tech program has made it necessary for us to build a new facility. Tomorrow, students will begin using this new space. Surgical technicians are in high demand locally, so having a modern learning facility with the latest technology is essential for student success. Many of you have also experienced the remodel of the Taylorsville Redwood Student Center, which has progressed nicely this year, but I will fully admit we still have a little ways to go. The offices for ODMA, the Oak Room, and the administrative suite have been completed. I'm going to put a plug in for VP Perazzi's open house today. Go in and see that new space. However, we have some major work like the replacement of the HVAC system for the Student Center that's continuing this fall break. We also have officially moved our downtown space at Library Square and relocated the Fashion Institute to South City. Later this fall, the Alder Amphitheater will undergo a major transformation. Since this space hosts many student events, we conducted a survey of over 250 students asking for feedback on design, and this exciting new project is expected to be completed by 2025. Throughout the summer, the Larry H. and Gail Miller Family Business Building has been in the design phase, and the construction bidding process is actually taking place right now. Upon completion, this building will feature an expanded auditorium, a business incubator, modernized classrooms, and a glass atrium that will serve as a gathering and event space. This is just a very small sampling of the projects overseen by our colleagues in facilities. In all, currently, our facilities team is managing over 100 projects, big and small, across all SLCC locations. Let's thank them for their tireless work and for all they do to make SLCC a beautiful, safe, inclusive place that is welcoming for all. Moving on from facilities, our People and Workplace Culture team has also been very, very busy this summer. I'm excited to share we're bringing back in full strength, like never before, Focus and Learn Days for fiscal year 2024. The dates are on the screen. You can clap for Focus and Learn Days. I want to thank my colleagues in Cabinet for doubling down on a commitment to these days, which provide really important time for collaboration, for team building, for personal and professional growth, and also just for a small break from meetings. Cabinet has committed to limiting meetings on Focus and Learn Fridays. EEO and employee relation changes for FY 2024. If you have not met our wonderful employee relations team, I really want to encourage you to get to know them. At this time, Leigh Pakalani is currently leading this team while Vilma Velasquez is on leave. And we have two great employee resource coordinators, Megan De Los Santos and Aubrey White. If you have not gotten to know them, I encourage you to get to know them. Really good things are happening across employee relations with a commitment to really focus on employees, collaboration, engagement, and thanks to Lay, a whole lot of aloha celebrations. As part of those aloha celebrations, PwC is bringing back Popcorn Fridays, the first Friday of every month. I told you PwC was full of exciting things this year. So Popcorn Fridays are coming back. Encourage you to join the PwC team the first Friday of every month. We're also really focusing this year on employee resource groups. So who's a member of an employee resource group? We've got some hands up. Thank you for being committed to community across Salt Lake Community College. With employee resource groups this year, we are really going to focus on community and bringing people together and celebrating all of the things that make SLCC a great place. So keep that in mind, more to come on employee resource groups, but that's a big lift for the PwC team this year. And my last update, not near as exciting as what's going on here, but we are completing our compensation market study. And so we received the initial results at the end of July. We're working with our partners at this point to go through and verify some data questions that we have. And we'll be presenting the initial presentation of that compensation study to Executive Cabinet on September the 5th and setting up forums with the faculty and staff associations later this fall. So really excited about this commitment from the college to ensure that our employees are paid fairly and at market, and really good things are coming from that study, and excited to share that later in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we're going to hear a little bit more about our efforts in equity, diversity, and inclusion. But I want to just talk to you a little bit of the history there. Today's EDI initiatives are actually part of a very long legacy of inclusion at the college. As the state's most diverse higher education institution, we are often ahead of the curve when it comes to inclusion programs. For example, the college established its first Gay-Straight Alliance Club, which was called Coloring Outside the Lines, in the late 90s. This organization was a precursor to today's Queer Student Association and advocated for what is now our Gender and Sexuality Student Resource Center. And as the demographics of the community have shifted, SLCC has made it a priority for every student and employee population to reflect, to see themselves, and for us to reflect those changes. This shift actually started in the early 2000s when President Budd, focusing on recruited and faculty and staff from diverse populations, saying, if we're a community college, we need to reflect, at some extent, the community that we are serving. He actually set up the first President's Diversity Committee, which hosted SLCC's first ever diversity conference, which was designed to identify ways to make the college a welcoming place for everyone. So fast forward today, where Dr. Juan Kadri is leading some truly transformative work that improves equity on campus. Part of her charge is encouraging everyone at the college, faculty, staff, and students, to consider inclusion and equity in our everyday tasks. So please help me welcome Dr. Kadri to the stage.
Good morning, Salt Lake Community College. Oh, yay, 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 yay. Sometimes I do that and there's kind of silence. Convocation is such an exciting time of the year. While I'm not faculty anymore, there is this energy that comes with Convocation. And so I want to bring you into that energy. First, I'm going to, I need to remember the clicker. Is this the clicker? I didn't practice ahead of time. Can somebody tell me if this is the clicker? This is the clicker. Oh, it is. Okay. I hear people shuffling in the back. So I want to give you an overview of what we're doing here at the institution in equity, inclusion, and transformation. And it's important for you to know what our focus is at this time. And so over the last 16 months in this position, I have been spending a lot of time listening, collaborating, reviewing, and moving forward and connecting. And those connections have been not only internally, but also externally in our community. And it's important for us to be thinking about how we're connecting with each other, to think about how we move forward, all of the initiatives. The initiatives from our office is not just about one group or small groups of people. It really is about our entire institution. And so it's important for you to know that we're thinking about all of you. There may be aspects of it that touch on certain groups of people, but even what we learn from those things will impact the work that we do across the college. I want to move into talking to you about our HSI initiatives. The HSI initiatives at this time are being led by Kino Hurtado, and he has been thinking a lot about, he came in October and really focused on bringing in the work that had already begun with many of you with the collaborative work team. And so he took that vision and began to think more about what can we do to kind of wrap it up and bring it into its new phase, which is now that we will be focusing on thinking about how we will collaborate, how we will bring in culturally responsive teaching, and also how we will think about making curricular and other student activities responsive to the communities that we're involved in. Part of that is that 21 staff and 5 faculty will be a part of some culturally responsive teaching that we are getting from an organization called Escala. Escala stands for scaling, and that means that is actually what we will be doing as partners. We will be scaling and climbing to think about how we are not just serving students, but we are actually we're not just enrolling students, but we're actually serving students. And so it's important to me that you know that we're not just thinking about the dollars attached to us becoming an HSI, but that we're actually working together to think about how we're doing that work. I'm gonna move us into thinking about our next project, which is our middle school engagement. One of our commitments as an institution is about community. And our value in community says that we are transformative and we provide the public good of educating students. Now, while educating middle schoolers may not seem like a part of our role, it really is. It's kind of that start, the pathway to lead us into thinking about not only are they in middle school, but moving them into high school and then eventually here to our institution. I want to tell you a little bit about my own story. We sometimes think of middle school kind of like, it's at least for many of us, it's far behind us. But middle school, in my mind, if I think about my own experience, middle school was the time when I saw my friends starting to get into trouble. I had friends that were going to juvenile. I had friends that got pregnant. We had lots of kind of transitions in our family. And so making sure that we're thinking about that and really encouraging students at that age to really see themselves as a part of the community and not just something kind of separate. And with middle schoolers, it's not just that the middle schoolers are engaged, but we are also engaging their families because we really need them to be a part of the programming that we're doing. We have a coordinator that's in Glendale. She actually comes from that community, and so she's working with the Glendale Middle School. She's also working with the Glendale Community Center. Her name is Itzel Bano Navos. I think I said that backwards. Itzel Nava Banos. And the work that she's doing is so important. She's done some creative things like bringing families in to do cooking. They have a garden. She's done some community events in there. And recently, I'm gonna switch a little bit and talk about our new middle school director. His name is Kim Perko. Kim Perko, will you give us a little wave? So Ken recently did kind of a big project he's only been here a month. And maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but he recently wore the Bruin suit to go to an event that they had. So we are all in. The middle schoolers were really excited to get to see him. And so one of the things around that is it's not just middle school in our office. Craig Caldwell's area is doing something. Richard Scott's area is doing something. There's work happening at the mill. And this year we'll be bringing that work together so that we are really thinking about how we are moving that next generation into thinking about the college. The next thing I want to tell you about is our equity-minded policy group. In Cabinet, we've been doing a lot of reviewing of policy, and so we've really wanted to make sure that we have an equity lens that's tied to us being a part of policy work. And that is going to be across all of the divisions. It's not just my area. We wanted to ensure that every area had someone that was a part of that. And I just sent out a letter last week asking people to be a part of that. So if you're here and agreed to be a part of that committee, will you raise your hand or give a wave? Thank you. So that group will really be focused on making sure that they're using an equity lens, that we're providing feedback to originators, that we're creating a template so that people aren't kind of like, what am I supposed to do with policy? We're giving them that template, and we'll also be giving feedback, which we will send to Cabinet to help with those reviews and with our 15-day review processes. I'm going to move us into talking about our statewide DEI convening. So that this is going to be a little bit of a surprise to Denise. She doesn't know I'm going to say this. We were selected to convene an EDI summit here at the college. And the reason we were selected is mostly because of the work we do as an institution, but also for Denise as a leader. She's seen that way across the state, and whether she's in the Council of Presidents or she's at some other meeting or a community group, she was really seen as a leader amongst the presidents across the state with DEI. And so it's really important that we're getting to host this. We're excited about this happening. It will be happening on October 16th at our Miller campus, and we will give you some updates about that along the way. And last but not least, this was my inaugural last year Convocation. I got to talk to you all about the Equity Compass. And for those of you that don't know about the Equity Compass is a tool that was redesigned based on something that came from the state, from USHE, the Utah State of Higher Education. They have something called the Equity Lens Framework, and that framework was designed to help our institutions really look at, across the board, how are we thinking about using and being infused with everything we do with equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so I took that, and our team last year came up with a different name. We wanted to call it a compass. And if you know anything about a compass is there to guide you. It doesn't tell you exactly where to go. You have to hold it up and give it direction to know where you're going. So this compass that we will be using is a framework and a tool that will guide us. One of the things that's also important about this that I've been excited about is Cabinet has really taken this on. We heard from you all that sometimes you think that we may not be doing the work, and we have gotten in, feet first, dived in. And the way we did that this year with the compass is that we came together and decided the thing that we would use the compass on is our informed budget process. And I really want to thank Darren. Darren Marshall really took this on and led us through that process. And even as Cabinet members, we really looked back to see, okay, we've done this, but what's different this time? And one of the things that you'll know, if you don't know, is different this time is that we actually looked at everything that people put forward. Instead of having vice presidents kind of take things out before it came to Cabinet, we looked at everything. And that's the way that we were really thinking about, one of the ways that we're thinking about of how to keep this, keep us active in equity, diversity, and inclusion. And often when we're using money, money is one of those ways that we forget to think about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we can forget about people. So we really wanted to make sure our money talked where we want it to talk. And so that's the other important thing that I want you to know. I will finish off with having you all do, I don't think I'm supposed to move forward to the next slide. I want to do something a little bit different. I want you to turn and look at a neighbor and say, "Good morning, I'm so happy you're here." From the sound that I hear from you, you didn't get to greet as many people. I love hearing that energy. I want you to do one more turn to somebody else. It looks like some of you said hi to multiple people. Now I want you to turn to somebody and say, "The work that you do here at Salt Lake Community College matters." Okay, I'm gonna call us back. The important part about that is we sometimes forget that the work that's not student-facing is important, and I want you to know that the work that you do here matters. We see you, and we care about you, and we care about the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kadri. As I mentioned earlier, since the late 40s, literally millions of Utahns have turned to Salt Lake Community College to launch their dreams and pursue opportunity. Students have always been our priority, and we are deeply dedicated to education for anyone who wishes to pursue it. So to do this, we've kept the college accessible on all fronts, as you know, by offering flexible classes, geographic access, and affordable tuition and fees. Look at this early advertisement for the college, specifically the Salt Lake Area Vocational School, that goes through the cost of attending.
Now that you've seen a preview of the school at work, you may be interested in reviewing the student training costs. This chart presents cost data for both the day and evening programs. Salt Lake Area Vocational School, cost of training. Day school, 9 months. Registration fee, $10. Tuition and fees, $78. Books and supplies, $12.50. Tools, average cost, $37.50. $138 per year. Evening school, registration fee, $3. Tuition per month, $3.
Like, why wouldn't you just come to evening school? I mean, duh. That's like so obvious. Work and then come to school at night. Okay. In addition to our quest for affordable access, we also want students to succeed. We can't just have them come, we need to help them get through successfully. And we have several resources and curricular reforms that are designed to increase retention and completion. So to tell us more about student success initiatives are Dr. Brett Perazzi, VP of Student Affairs, and Dr. Jason Pickavance, Interim Provost of Academic Affairs.
So Brett and I are here together, our newish VP of Student Affairs and your humble interim provost, to talk a little bit about student success. Brett's going to share some best practices, but also to signal some renewed efforts around collaboration between student affairs and academic affairs. Collaboration is a named value at Salt Lake Community College. But values don't live apart from practice and unless leaders at the college model them effectively. To that end, Brett and I have been meeting over the summer to get to know each other and form a professional bond and I think a friendship that we hope will set a positive tone for how our teams work together. A distinction is sometimes drawn between the official curriculum and the lived curriculum. The official curriculum is syllabi, learning outcomes, assignments, assessments. The lived curriculum describes how students actually experience our courses and our educational pathways. It's perhaps worth drawing a similar distinction between the official mission and what I'll call the lived mission of the college. The official mission you see, I think, on the slide before you. It's supposed to be the next slide, I think. Oh, I'm in charge of this. There we go. Okay. The official mission you see on the slide before you describes the scope of our college's work, and it translates, as Jeff Aird will remind you, into goals and key performance indicators. But underneath the official mission resides the lived mission. And perhaps no better phrase captures that lived mission than student success. In a moment, Brett's going to talk about some key elements of student success, but I know each of us can recall experiences with students that mark that lived mission for us. While we are held accountable to the official mission by external bodies like the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities, our accrediting body, we hold ourselves accountable to the lived mission. Those experiences with students serve as a reminder of why we're here in the first place, and they're the experiences that sort of give meaning to our work.
Thank you, LAC, for not having one of those mics that goes, makes a lot of noise. Jason, thank you. Being my first convocation, I did want to just mention that I hadn't realized, it makes sense, that Salt Lake Community College was actually founded in large part in relation to the GI Bill, and I am a product of the GI Bill myself. My father is the son of an immigrant farmer who actually served in the war and was able to go to college to one of the most elite institutions in New York State. So I am a real proud recipient of sorts of what Salt Lake Community College is all about, and it feels really great to be here at this institution. Jason's comments were really great, and he sent them to me ahead of time too, and I fully agree that we've been spending time getting to know each other, and I think I can safely tell you that I've been waiting my entire career for this, where student affairs and academic affairs are working side by side. It takes a smart, intelligent leader to be able to recognize this and have the humility, even though he joked about it, to be able to work together and across lines and across barriers. And it goes for all of us, and we'll come back to that in just a minute in some of these slides. I'm going to progress the slides here and talk a little bit about student success generally as kind of a rubric for all of us to see ourselves in. So this is some high-level data across all of higher education and all different sectors in higher education, some of the things that make us and students as successful as they can be. I want to just focus on one point on each of these slides for the sake of time. The first item here is faculty-student contact. We have known literally for decades that this makes a huge difference in the lives of students and their success while they're enrolled in college. The anecdote I'd like to share is I worked at an institution one time where faculty and staff weren't allowed to use the recreation center, which you can kind of see how this plays into policy issues, because knowing that interaction of faculty and staff, this is not just in the classroom but outside the classroom as well, to be prohibited in a setting of higher learning isn't the best policy. We're able to look at these policies using an equity lens, which we'll see on the next slide as well, to help our students be successful. The next slide that I'm going to show you needs a little bit of setup. There are researchers in higher education. The lead author in this next study actually is probably the most prolific researcher in all of higher education. They began the NESE program. Some of you know NESE or SESI, the National Survey of Student Engagement. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students by this point in time have actually taken this assessment, which means that the data is incredibly robust. And so what it allows is for research to look at the entering characteristics of students and actually make predictions about what students should gain after their college experience. And what these researchers did is they say, who is it? What institutions are making massive gains well beyond what is predicted? what are they doing to make this work? So then they sent, I believe it was 14 researchers to these 14 different institutions to do qualitative analysis, and essentially these are the results of their study. So just take a look at that for a moment. I want to focus on the third item, because this gets at what Jason was setting up and what I am attempting to reinforce is that environments adapted for educational enrichment. We all are a part of that. No matter what we're doing at the college, we are in some way making an effort to help students have the environment and the tools and the resources that they need. No matter what we're doing, a lot of us work behind the scenes, a lot of us are front lines working with students. It makes no difference. We're all creating this environment for student success. There are lots of things that we can do. If we break this down and we utilize the equity lens that has been mentioned a few times already today, we look at some of the data for Salt Lake Community College. Now, I don't think it's too important to know specific lines and things, but the variation is important for us to know. To just take a look at the variation among our students broken down using this equity lens. And this is fall-to-fall retention numbers. And then the next slide, we're looking at completion numbers. And this too is broken down. Beware the lines are different colors on this slide for completion. But if you want to track that, you can kind of have a general sense of where we are in terms of percentages. Jeff, I hope I'm scoring some points here with you on these data items. The last piece is our transition, where we, excuse me, we are doing a little bit better in our transition areas, but it is important. The president started out early in this talk today about the importance of us utilizing data as we move forward with success for our student body. The final slide that I have here kind of sets up what Jason's going to kind of bring us home here with is our student success teams. This is an array of data from the literature and, yes, ChatGPT. I kid you not. I actually used ChatGPT to generate some of these things to see if it matched the literature, and indeed it did. And here's a listing. It's not exhaustive, but the kinds of data points that we can use as we're looking at student success as we go forward. Jason? Shall I?
Thanks, Brent. So I just want to briefly talk about, I hesitate to say new initiative. I'd rather say a continuation of ongoing efforts, an effort to kind of better organize our work. We're calling them student success teams. They kind of are flowing out of some of that area of study work that we've been engaged in over the last few years. And maybe a way, I think, we've had some successes and failures, I think it's fair to say, with respect to guided pathways reform. And this is another go at it, another effort to sort of just think carefully about what makes sense for us as a college, and how do we integrate our efforts more effectively. So these success teams that are going to be focused on areas are going to oversee and evaluate the student experience in each area of study. They're organized around a common core of participants across academic and student affairs and going to focus on some common functions. They're going to include faculty as the core. We're still nailing it down, but I think there needs to be at least a faculty co-lead for these teams. Academic administrators in the area, and then partners in student affairs, advising, career coaches, some data analysis folks, and then student leaders as well. Some ideas we're sort of working through this year is one, to identify a couple of curricular checkpoints for each area that would serve as monitoring points for student progress. So figuring out, in partnership with data analytics, what are the loss points in different areas and different programs, and what can we learn about why students are dropping out at certain points in their pathway. Each team will develop evaluation points unique to the area, support the consistent use of Canvas and My Success. I think we still need to figure out how to effectively involve faculty and academic administrators in the My Success tool. I think that's been a challenge that we need to these teams can help us work through. And then thinking about the overall experience outside the classroom, thinking about those kind of extra and co-curricular pieces. And that will be forthcoming this fall. And we'll be working with you to kind of build those teams. Each dean I've asked to sort of begin to draft out what it'll look like in their area. And I just want to end with just saying again, it's been great so far working with Brett, and we're really, we want to make an effort this year, again, to have academic and student affairs really kind of collaborate effectively. We're hoping these teams don't serve as yet another new initiative, but a way to actually take lots of duplicative efforts and better organize them in a way that actually kind of moves us forward with some of our goals. Thank you.
Thank you to Jason and Brett. I'm so looking forward to these two and what they're going to help lead with the deans and the success teams. I think we're in for some amazing new experiences this fall, so thanks. So I've talked a lot about how our founding mission was technical college focused, where students could quickly earn a certificate and move on to a career. It's true we added general education courses in the late 80s and kind of created that comprehensive community college, but our technical mission remains, and it remains strong. And Salt Lake Tech, as you know, is being rebranded and strengthened. Salt Lake Technical College, as you know, is for students who need the training, they need new skills, and they need them now, just like the student in the early 90s.
I want an education. I don't want training for just one job. I want some flexibility. I want it now and in 20 years from now.
The Automated Systems Technology program at Salt Lake Community College can take you places.
Is that good? How about the music? What? What was that music? What is that, like Foghat or who? Who can name that band? Anyway, our archivists have been having a blast in the 75th anniversary. They've been uncovering all sorts of cool things. So I'm now pleased to turn some time to Dr. Jennifer Saunders, as you know, is leading our Salt Lake Tech realignment and rebranding, and she's going to update us on changes that are taking place at Salt Lake Technical College. So Jennifer.
Hello, it's good to be here with you. Let's see, I have the power. Sarah, does this get advanced or did I? There we go. So since July 2020, Salt Lake Technical College began a journey of transformation. First was the name change. We moved from Salt Lake, the School of Applied Technology became Salt Lake Technical College. The School of Applied Technology and Technical Specialties became the School of Technical and Professional Specialties. The name change was followed quickly by the initiation of a statewide program alignment in technical education. Faculty leads from Salt Lake Tech programs met with faculty from other technical colleges across the state, and these meetings were convened by the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education. The alignment included student learning outcomes, program length, program name, and course numbers. Some of the content even has moved within our institution as a result of this alignment. We began that process of transferring content or programs with automotive and welding. And now these degree programs have the first year offered as a certificate program in Salt Lake Technical College. Maybe. There we go. Okay. In July 2022, Salt Lake Technical College faculty moved from a 9-month contract to a 12-month contract. Instruction within Salt Lake Tech was already 12 months a year with 9-month contract and a summer contract. But a single 12-month contract more accurately reflects faculty work within Salt Lake Tech. Salt Lake Tech faculty now can schedule their breaks and vacations, which may or may not be the same as fall and spring breaks of the faculty who teach in degree programs. Yes, this aligns with other technical colleges within the state. And yes, as an institution, we now mitigate risk, having a more precise approach to commissioning faculty work in the technical college. And yes, it's an adjustment for some of our faculty. But more importantly, there are steadfast and student-centered Salt Lake Tech faculty that are reporting a new life-work balance, that they're able to structure breaks within a 12-month period that they had not been afforded previously. Equally important is we have increased the access of our students to faculty. Now that's a lot, but wait, there's more. On July 1st of 2023, 2 more significant steps were taken towards Salt Lake Technical College aligning with other technical colleges in Utah. And again, more importantly, yes, we need to align with the state, but more importantly is to better do the work to serve our unique community and our students. First, our technical education programs moved from clock hour to credit hour. This was at the direction of Utah's Board of Higher Education, and the goal was they were seeking what they referred to as a common currency within higher education. Now, while articulation agreements existed between clock hour and credit hour programs, and Salt Lake Tech had a number of these internally with degree programs within our institution, as well as other tech colleges had some articulation agreements with our degree programs. The expectation is now there are opportunities for students to seamlessly transfer from technical colleges to degree-granting institutions in Utah, and that the number of students who choose to do this and to continue their education pathways will significantly increase. Now note, this change was monumental. It was the work of just about every department within our institution. And there's always a risk when you start calling out people or even departments that you're going to forget someone. However, I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to take that risk because this work was so huge. And I want to particularly thank Rachel Lewis and David Brower for their work. Yes. There was a year's worth of planning and careful, methodical strategizing, but there's nothing like when you get to the point where you start the transitions. And this work and this move to credit also really relied on the registrar and the non-credit registration teams. Thanks to the admission teams, thank you to IT, the budget office, financial aid, the bursar's office. Thanks to Jeff Aird, who helped make sure that we didn't get into trouble with our accrediting body, because that's also something that we need to disclose and work through, moving from clock hour to credit hour. And thank you for all the troubleshooting that our advising director has done, and the academic advisors who have worked closely with the associate deans and Salt Lake Tech operations. This was a huge lift. There are still glitches, yes, yes. It was messy. I also want to do a shout out to Sandra Thompson, who was in the dean's office. Yeah, anybody who's worked with her knows that that's really worth a round of applause. In addition to her ever-increasing duties, she essentially ran a switchboard out of our office, answering a number of questions with students. And she is someone who rather than transfers phone calls, she'll put people on hold or take their number and do the research and get back to them. And I appreciate that modeling. she does for all of us and her commitment. And she's one of many who have done that. But I thought it was important to acknowledge her work. And yes, there's still more. And one may say I even buried the lead. Also on July 1st of 2023, Salt Lake Community College Division of Workforce and Economic Development merged with Salt Lake Technical College. With this combined talent of these teams, Salt Lake Technical College will serve our communities by providing technical education, short-term workforce training, continuing education, corporate training, and foundational courses and programs such as basic technology and ESL. Now, why this reorganization? Anybody who's lived through a reorg knows that there's a lot of work involved. Sometimes there's changing offices. It can be quite disruptive. So why are we doing this work? And I say to this so that we can be more efficient and effective. The new organizational structure is similar to other technical colleges, and you probably recognize that theme, that's been an expectation. But that's not the only reason that we do this work. And there is something very significantly different about how now we are organized in Salt Lake Tech, and that is our capacity to be the flagship technical college in the state. We have the kind of talent within this group that can set the standard and lead the way in technical education and resources to our community, similar to what was initiated and the standard that was set 75 years ago. And why is this so important? Because our public purpose is to help our community thrive. Now, I thought about how I wanted to close these remarks, and I collected a number of stories and have some of my own of how this work has impacted individuals. And as I read through and thought about all the examples I could share from both workforce and Salt Lake Technical College areas, there was lots to choose from. Rather, I want to conclude by sharing an observation. I have worked at Salt Lake Community College for 20 years. 15 years of those have been in workforce training, continuing education, and technical education. I have seen the difference in the lives of individuals. Individuals who take foundational classes in basic tech or ESL and then have the option to move on to a technical program or an academic program. I've seen the power of people who have had careers and have come back to the college to either become licensed K-12 instructors or start some other different career for any number of reasons. Many of whom find themselves need to help their careers or do the work to make sure their careers can last another 5 or 10 years. Gone are the days that we can retire at 65, if you haven't noticed. We deliver customized training. I've seen people advance in their workplace. I've seen budding new or even older kinds of companies that have been able to refresh as they train incumbent workers. We've seen full-time individuals who have 2 and 3 part-time jobs be able to move to full-time employment with benefits through obtaining a workforce or a technical ed certification. The lives change. The observation I want to share with you is that for every life we touch, there's at least 3, maybe 4 more people who need that same support, that need that same opportunity, who either don't realize that this opportunity exists at Salt Lake Technical College, at Salt Lake Community College, or they haven't figured out a way to access it. These reorg and these changes that I've just rehearsed for you are designed to increase that access. They're designed to include more in the opportunities that exist at our institution. They're designed to scale our work. I look forward to doing this work with you. It is messy. It is hard work. There's a lot of change. But I'm confident we can do it together, and I'm even more confident that the work matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saunders. I just want to echo, you cannot imagine the work that has gone into this. And thank you, Jennifer, for giving shout outs to all of the folks that have been involved, but another big shout out to Jennifer Saunders herself, who is leading that work. Very difficult work, but very, very important. So thank you. Our last speaker today is Jeff Aird, Vice President of Institutional Effectiveness. He oversees our strategic planning, and which according to school records has been a part of SLCC for longer than you might think. So Dale Cowgill, who was college president from 1978 to 1980, introduced strategic planning to Salt Lake Community College. He created a 34-person team called the Committee for Development. And the committee had three functions. They were to define the college's place in the world, to make the college function better, and to introduce new teaching innovations and improvements. So, knowing that strategic planning has long been in our history, please help me welcome Jeff Aird, Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness. He'll give us an update on our next transformative planning process.
Good morning. Maybe we're past good morning. Okay. Last fall, President Hufflin created a select committee of your peers to lay the foundation for the next chapter of SLCC. The strategic plan that had guided us from 2016 through 2023 was winding down, and we needed to lay some groundwork for 2024 and beyond. This team comprised of key leaders and 10 members of our college community. They explored our legacy and took on hard questions that face our future. We called this work the Merrick Star Project. Ooh. The Merrick Star, pictured here, is a navigational star that has been used for hundreds of years to guide explorers and travelers, but it carries more significance for us. Merrick's light, that same SLCC blue, traverses roughly 80 million light years to make it to SLCC, to our campus. So the light that emanated from Merrick as we opened our doors 75 years ago will arrive to our campus sometime in the next 3 to 5 years. As we gaze at Merrick and we see the past, as we anticipate its light's arrival by the end of this decade, we prepare for the future. The committee was charged with identifying the most critical factors we must attend to for a prosperous future. This included looking both inside and outside the institution to identify trends, needs, challenges, and opportunities. The team met 7 times throughout the academic year and formed subcommittees to work on specific areas. I'd like to invite members of the Merrick Star Committee to stand, and all who worked on this. There are other subgroups and other supporting folks. If you'd please stand, we'd love to give you all a round of applause for your great work. Thank you. Thank you for supporting this work. So, what did this committee actually accomplish? We divided the work into 4 buckets or areas of inquiry that will help us build a coherent and effective strategy moving forward. Each area had a specific question and deliverable. So we had our area on story, talent and capacity, big trends, and differentiation and compete. And each one, as I said, had a question. And so we explored these 4 questions. You remember at SLCC 360 last February, we dove deep into these 4 questions and explored them. And the outcomes of this were 4 outcomes. So story, we wanted to have a description of what that story should be for the foundation for the future. For talent and capacity, is what are our top organizational strengths that we can build upon to move us forward? The Big Trends Group produced a list of the top 10 factors most likely to impact SLCC over the next 10 years. And finally, the Differentiate and Compete suggested a potential set of differentiators that highlight the value of an SLCC education. So just really, really briefly, we don't have time to go depth today. We will have a larger college-wide meeting in September where we'll release the full report, have discussions, and dig into this more deeply. But I did want to give you a little bit of a preview. The story group worked collaboratively to create a short description of the SLCC story that will serve as the foundation for our future. Effective organizations have an integrated sense of their character that guides its value and decision-making. Author and Professor Jim Collins has written this: "Truly great organizations understand the difference between what they should never change and what should be open for change, between what is genuinely sacred and what is not. This rare ability to manage continuity and change requires a conscientious practice discipline. It is closely linked to the ability to develop a vision. An institutional story provides guidance about what is core to preserve and what future to stimulate progress towards." So what does our history create that we want to keep? And what parts do we want to change for our future? We wanted to write something down, something that would serve as a common narrative and a unifying story. We'll release the full draft of that in early September, but I hope that maybe you're hearing some of the themes come up in today's presentation. Do you hear something that resonates with you? Is there something that maybe doesn't quite sound right? Something you'd rather move on from? That's good. We'll be hosting discussions throughout the fall. Chime in, help us shape this narrative together. In strengths, they identified 5 strengths that we will build upon: our values, our commitment to the community, our people, our diversity, and our strong foundation. Values drive us in our ongoing commitment to a transformative education and strengthening our community. We are committed to being centered in our community, to being accessible in who we are, who we serve, what we do, and where we are located. Our people care. We're dedicated problem solvers who are flexible, adaptable, and committed to our students, each other, and our community. We strive to create an environment where our students and employees can bring their whole selves and find a place of belonging. We celebrate diversity of thought and experience. And finally, the college is built on a very strong foundation. It is committed to being here for the generations to come. The strong foundation includes support from a legislature and donors who continue to invest in Salt Lake Community College, and our students providing support in state-of-the-art facilities with focus on teaching and learning. In the big trend space, we wanted to make sure that we recognize we are facing significant headwinds. The world is changing at a rapid pace. What are the most important trends outside of Salt Lake Community College that we must be paying attention to? Last February, we presented over 20 options to you, and we have now, based on your feedback, pared that down to 10. These include the decline in social trust, the mental health crisis, particularly acute in Utah, the looming enrollment cliff, and others. Please join us again in this fall as we'll dive into these more deeply. And finally, our final bucket is our differentiation and compete. It's a recognition that we are far from the only educational option that our students have. They have an ever-increasing list of ways to pursue learning and training. We can no longer simply rely on our public mandate and open access to ensure financial sustainability. But our vision has never been to just be a stable college. We want to be a model for inclusive and transformative education. Community colleges are well positioned to handle the many trends we just looked at. But how do we best position the college within the higher education ecosystem? What specific student populations do we target? And what educational experiences and outcomes do we design for them? These are questions posed by our differentiate and complete area. We recognize that we need to find what EAB calls the differentiation sweet spot. This is the strategic position that meets the needs of our students, is within our capacity to do well, but is difficult for other institutions to replicate. The committee has identified 6 potential differentiators we'll be discussing this fall. Relevance and industry experience. One member of our committee suggested that we explore what it would mean to become the uncollege, a place that breaks the rising perception that college is a waste of time. But rather, we are deeply applied, relevant, and aimed specifically at what students need to know to advance in a modern economy. Low cost, this is a historical SLCC differentiator, and it will likely remain. We know that students report costs as the primary reason for attending here, but as the only public institution in Utah with significant enrollment declines, we know that price alone is insufficient. Credit for prior learning, the largest segment of our enrollment decline in the past 10 years has been in our post-traditional students. Are there better ways to design and leverage the expertise our students bring with them? Are there ways that we've become a leader in this space at scale? Teaching and instruction. We are liberated to focus exclusively on teaching. Because this is unique to our mission, we can be better than anyone else in the state. We can recruit, support, develop the best teachers in the world. Focusing on industry experience alongside appropriate credentials and a shared lived experience, we can differentiate through our amazing instructional experiences. Diversity and inclusion. Our campuses reside in the most diverse areas of Utah. We are by far the most diverse institution in Utah. How can we continue to build on this opportunity to be shaped and molded by the communities we serve? And finally, are there programs that we are uniquely situated to offer? Our health sciences perhaps is one that we can continue to expand, but perhaps there's also other places and some curricular innovations we need to be exploring. For example, BYU Idaho is actively exploring and pursuing a 90-credit bachelor's degree. Is that something maybe we should be considering as well? These are big questions about our future and the building of an inclusive and transformative model of education. I look forward to discussing with you these ideas later this year. But that brings us to the last. So we've laid the groundwork. That was the goal of the committee. So now we ask, so what? What are we going to do with this? The first step is to share out our findings and then discuss them with you. We'll be doing this throughout the fall. Starting in spring, we'll pivot and discuss what specific strategies we are going to employ to build the next strategic plan. We will culminate all these discussions in the release of a new strategic plan at this very meeting next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you all for being patient. There's a lot to cover, but we thought it was really important to take the time when we're all together to give you as much information as we could. So thank you for your patience. This is, as you can hear, an exciting time at the college, and we are on the cusp of extraordinary things. So please watch for ways that you can participate in these upcoming strategic planning conversations. Those will be announced, and we really want you to come and build on the incredible work of the Merrick Star Committee. So just a few notes before we close. While our official anniversary is September 14th, the college is holding a big birthday party for students, staff, and their families and faculty at this year's Bruin Bash. The Bruin Bash is scheduled for this Friday, August 25th from 5 to midnight, and we'd love for as many of you to come as possible and bring your families. There will be free food and games and entertainment and a short 75th anniversary program. We will also have a nighttime drone light show and music from the band No Limits, which features some of our SLCC alumni. So it promises to be a great evening. Also on September 14th, we will mark our official anniversary with a celebration here at the Taylorsville Redwood campus and smaller celebrations at all of our other sites. So more information about that will be posted in SLCC today, but it will be an anniversary tribute. We're gonna open a time capsule that was seated in the Student Center about 40 years ago. That event will also be live streamed, so if you work at another site, you'll still be able to catch the action. And then after we've opened the time capsule that day, we'll have music and cupcakes at all of our campuses, courtesy of staff and faculty associations. Okay, so I think I have to call a little bit, okay, I'm looking at, it's on? Okay, we're calling audibles. Okay, we have one more detail before we break for the provost meeting, the employee extravaganza lunch at our division meeting. So this is where you have to listen really carefully. So our Bruin cheerleaders, give a round of applause for our Bruin cheerleaders. So they have created a special cheer in honor of our 75th anniversary. So this is how this is gonna play out. I feel like now I wanna say, pretend you were in second grade and you still listen to your teacher. Okay? They're gonna close out the session by performing the cheer for us. Immediately after the cheer, the cheerleaders are gonna lead everyone to the soccer field where we're gonna form the number 75 on the field. Okay, now listen. And then once in place, in the 75, we're gonna have a drone. Adam, where's Adam? Adam's probably, are you manning the drone? No. No, once in place, we're gonna have drone and various photographers take pictures, and that's gonna be our holiday card this year. So we need everyone to do this and follow instructions. So here are the instructions. Those of you on this side of the LAC, my right, I want you to get up when after the cheer, you're gonna get up and you're gonna go on that very first door where Taylor is raising your hand and Christy, that first door, and you're gonna head out and you're gonna stay in line. Like a little buddy system, just like go back to second grade, channel it. Get in a line, stay in a line, and walk. Those of you on this side of the arena are going to come to the further door. Raise your hand. Yes, you. You're going to go through that door. So you guys come on this side and just try to create, doesn't matter what line you're in, just get in one of the lines, follow the person in front of you, make a new friend if you've not met them, and follow them all the way to the soccer field, okay? Those on the left are going to create the number 7. Those on the right are going to create the number 5. It's going to work, I promise you. Once you're in place, their drones are going to come up. We're going to take a shot. Listen to the bullhorn. Someone's out there with the bullhorn. This is the hardest part of this day. This will be the hardest thing you'll do all semester, I swear to God. So just dial in, just pay attention, follow the person in front of you, and it'll all be fine, I promise. You'll get to lunch. Those of you that are faculty, do not wander away. You need to come back here. Interim Provost, Jason Pickavance is very concerned that you're going to desert him and head to the food trucks. No, you must not. Second graders don't desert their teacher, they come back. Yes? So those of you, come back, okay? You're still in second grade. You're still in second grade. At the end, you can be an adult again. If you do all of that right, you can be an adult again, okay? So if you're a member of the staff after the photo, go to the food trucks, have fun, go to the employee extravaganza, learn all about the resources. Faculty, you're going to grab lunch after the provost session. And then starting at 1:30, we're going to have division meetings, all the different meetings across campus, right? Are we good? Give me a thumbs up if you got it. Look at those thumbs up. All right, I've never been prouder of being at Salt Lake Community College. You guys are the best. I'm inspired by you, and I'm inspired by my students. And I'm so excited to be an institution that's been around for 75 years, where dreams have been launched. Second acts take shape, and communities are built. So thank you so much. Let's make this a great year. Now, the Bruins. Come on up, cheerleaders. Are you coming up here? Come in front. Come in front. Do you want to be on stage? Okay. Everyone, make sure you get in your line. Thank you, cheerleaders. Thanks for a great year. Let's make it the best. And remember, leap and the net will appear. They're going to have to raise their own
Testing. All right. This does work. How are you, Thomas? All right. I'll be probably 20 minutes. I'm going to keep it private. So there'll be zero inspiration. I promise. Yeah, and I don't need these. These are great. If you want to take them away, that's. All right, are we ready to start here? Let's get to lunch here, right? It'll be a 65, 70-minute talk. Yeah, no, I'm hoping to keep this to 20-something minutes. I thought it was important, woo, yes, to lay out some practical things for the year. So there we go. First, actually before that, let me go back. First, I wanted to say thank you for having me as your interim provost. It's a real privilege to serve all of you this year. So, and you know, I have been here a long time. This is my 21st year, and I know so many of you. There's so many familiar faces out there, and I feel like I owe it to you as my colleagues and friends to give you a strong performance this year in this role. Knowing how intelligent and dedicated you all are only raises the stakes for me, because my challenge will be to provide the leadership that you deserve. And I'm dedicated to serving you to the best of my ability this year. So I just wanted to kind of start with that. Next, I wanted to do some shout outs, and I kind of want to continue this throughout the year. There's so much good work happening. I asked the deans over the summer to kind of give me some names of folks, and really we would need the rest of the week to sort of lay out all of the achievements and successes that are happening across our faculty and staff in academic affairs. So I selected some. It was really hard to do, and my goal is, as the year sort of unfolds, to continue to kind of make an effort to recognize folks publicly for their achievements. Let me start with faculty leaders. We have, last year, Shireen McKay served as Faculty Association President, and Adam Dastrup served as our Senate President. We're lucky enough, again, to have Adam in the role of Senate President, and then Kristen Taylor serving as Faculty Association President. I served, some of you may know, as Senate President for 2 years, many years ago. And it is very difficult, thankless work being a faculty leader. You don't get a pay bump. And you're often in the middle of really fraught, hard conversations. And I think that both last year and this year, they deserve a lot of credit for navigating that. I'll just say one more. In addition to those sort of named faculty leaders, faculty at this institution, through our shared governance system, occupy really important leadership positions on Senate subcommittees. I see Darren Jensen, who's the chair of the Adjunct Faculty Impact Committee. I could go and name many others, that they do the important work of kind of moving the work of the college forward, leading in those areas. And so that's work that's sometimes not as visible, but is nevertheless essential to sort of how higher education works for us and for our students. So thank you for your leadership there. I also wanted to recognize David Bakavoy and Chris Bradbury, who lead the Salt Lake Community College Prison Program, and also the faculty who teach in that program. Cam, for example, teaches in the program. This summer, they had their first graduation, the largest number of graduates, and it's emerging as one of the largest in-person prison programs in the country. And that's a big deal. I wanted to recognize Beth Colosimo and her team. I don't know if she's here or not, but if you were here this summer, earlier in the summer, you saw a bunch of middle school kids in AAB. 180 middle school students participated in this Verizon STEM camp. It was really cool. And those are students who, really the goal is to help those underserved students, those kids, see themselves as college-going material. And they got to work on robots and program and do all this stuff. And it's a pretty hard to get grant that Beth did, and we're going to continue. You can expect next summer you'll continue to see kids there, and her team deserve a lot of credit for that. Tyler Smith, Channing Lowe, and David Leyleitner run our film production program. Yes. They just recently, this is like the 4th or 5th student that's been accepted out of our program to the American Film Institute. I have a best friend who works in film, so I know what that means. He lives in, like, it's a big deal. Like, the American Film Institute is a really hard to get into prestigious institution, and we are sending our graduates there. And I think it just testifies to the sort of quality work that those folks are doing. Yeah. Carolina Bloom and Artie Nakra were participated in a Mellon Fellowship this last year, a Mellon Leadership Fellowship, yeah, in partnership with the University of Utah. And, you know, it trained them to sort of become future sort of leaders at the institution. They are now beginning to see themselves as people who will occupy maybe chair, associate dean, dean, interim provost positions, and I welcome that. So shout out to them. Phil Nelson in business actually facilitated an SLCC Shark Tank. I will confess that is one of, I don't know if I should say guilty pleasure or just pleasure, but it is a pleasure of mine, Shark Tank. So we actually, I did not know this, we have an SLCC Shark Tank that Phil conducted at the end of fall and spring semesters. Students won $4,000 in prize money to start their businesses. 2 Shark Tank winners entered the Utah Entrepreneurship Challenge at the University of Utah and won an additional $6,000. Yeah. And then for that reason, I'm in. Say, a little Shark Tank reference. Sandra Hall, an assistant professor in construction, is making significant curricular changes, increasing employer engagement, and designing more project-based instruction to better support women in the trades, which is a part of Jennifer Saunders' vision for SLTC. And Sandra is a former student of the program as well. Dr. Stephanie Richardson and her team were awarded a large grant from Utah Talent Ready to expand nursing to a year-round program. So we're going to be going year-round, yeah. The grant is base funding 5 new faculty lines, base funding it. So this isn't just one-time funding in nursing, and it'll enable us to accept and train up to an additional 120 registered nurses annually. Yeah, that's really cool. And I'll say as an aside, I think that the growth in areas like health sciences will have downstream enrollment effects for other areas of the institution. So I think it serves those students and it'll serve other areas of the college. 2 more, Lindsay Page, a coordinator in mathematics. People may not be aware, but over the last few years, the developmental math team has done significant curricular reforms. Right now, before, students had to go through a series of courses to kind of navigate developmental math. They do 1 course now. They pay once, and then they can just kind of get through it at the pace that they can get through it. That was a lot of work. Lindsay was essential. She was the glue of that work and really deserves our thanks. And then finally, Diana Barker, and I actually got to know Diana in my previous role when testing services reported to me. So she's been a long-time employee at the college, working in IT, in testing services. She assisted in creating the back-end tasks to make Canvas placement testing work for us. And then the new placement platform, we're bringing on this fall a new platform called Mobius. She's been essential to kind of getting that on board. She also supported the opening of testing services at Jordan, West Valley, West Point, and now Harriman. Diana is one of those employees that if she were to go, you're just like, what are we gonna do? You know, it's really, she's just an essential piece, and again, I think deserves our praise and recognition. And I just, you know, I could go on. There's so many other stories. I'm looking out at people and looking at just reminded of all the achievements that we witness at the college. And again, you know, I just count myself lucky to work with all of you here. Next is just, I want to provide some updates for the year to kind of set the stage for what you can expect. There's going to be a search. I am the interim provost for academic affairs. So there will be a national search led out of the president's office that will begin this fall, and with the idea of a new provost being named sometime in the spring, April, May, depending on how the search goes down. I expect that there will be, this is an excellent institution, that there will be a very strong, diverse pool of candidates from which we can select somebody to help lead academic affairs going forward. There's also going to be a search this year for the Dean of the Gail Miller School of Business. It'll also begin this fall. I've worked with Vice President Chris Martin on selecting a search firm actually for this that will help us really get a good pool of candidates. And I think the goal again is spring that dean would come on for the School of Business. I have a goal of doing some provost forums, both in the fall and the spring. I'm aiming for a couple each semester. I've got to schedule them yet. We'll figure out what the ideal time is. And ideally those forums, I'll talk some, but the bulk of the time ought to be left to you to talk at me and to ask questions and to give me feedback about my performance, academic affairs, concerns you have, things that are working and that we ought to do more of, all the above. But I really, I'm going to make real efforts this year to be accessible and open to folks and to hear the good things, but also to hear the things that I need to hear, right, that are hard to hear sometimes. So those will happen this year. I wanted to lay out this discussion team. You may or may not be familiar with discussion team. It is a group charged by the president with negotiating issues around faculty compensation and load. There are 5 faculty, 5 administrators. They enter this room, Kristen, and we sort of hash out ultimately what appears in the faculty handbook. And there's been some confusion, I'll say, in the past about there's been this sort of, Fight Club model of discussion team, first rule of discussion team, nobody talks about discussion team, and that's totally untrue. And in fact, I think discussion team works more effectively if the boundaries around it are relatively porous. What we want to do is, as we engage in discussions around overload, how we fold high impact practices into the handbook, on and on, we need to gather the views of you all, the faculty and academic administrators, so we can make more informed choices and revisions to the handbook. And so I've promised both Adam and Kristen, as we sort of engage in those discussions this year, to try to just be open about what we're talking about, to share what we're doing, and to try to get your feedback on those things. The big 3 priorities for the year, we have a whole list. We actually met a few weeks ago and laid out what our priorities were for the year, and actually also assigned tasks to different members of discussion teams. So we're hoping to really hit the ground running in September and have a productive year with the handbook. We need to account for the ongoing changes in Salt Lake Technical College. We got to figure out how that fits into the handbook. Adam has proposed, how do we sort of think through advancement within rank? What does that look like? It feels like there's an opportunity there to maybe formalize something. And this is really, I think Tiffany Rauskopf deserves credit for this, but how do we account for high impact practices in our full-time and part-time teaching loads? And the first kind of one that's been let out is writing intensive, and we had some discussion around that last year and decided that we needed a broader sort of principle for how we want to do that for other high impact practices like undergraduate research, let's say. And so we're hoping to make headway on that this year. There's changes coming from the System Office for General Education that are going to be pretty consequential for us. So the Utah General Education Task Force and the Utah Transfer Council have recommended that all gen ed go down to 27 to 30. It's a pretty significant constriction, and it's going to limit us with respect to our institutional gen ed requirements, right? And so in the coming couple of years, there's going to be some pretty intense conversations around where some of those courses are going to land. And my only sort of thing I would say about that now is I think we need to be good colleagues to one another around that we need to find room in those distribution requirements or other areas so that our colleagues have a place to teach those courses and making decisions about which ones we keep and which ones we don't. Those are going to be hard conversations, I think. New technology this year is, I was going to make a joke. I'm going to make the joke because I can't help myself. And Gavin will later be mad at me and then I'll apologize. So I apologize in advance, Gavin, for my joke about simple syllabus. I was going to say it's a somewhat, maybe it's complicated syllabus, less than simple. So We know there have been some glitches with it. This summer, Kristen appealed to me. She said, please let there be a soft rollout in the fall. And I said, that makes sense. I think we haven't got it figured out yet. So let's do a more gradual rollout while we kind of figure out how to make it work for folks. I'm still optimistic about the tool. I think it's going to do a lot of things in terms of making accessible syllabi. You can publish them as an HTML, so you can sort of like advertise your syllabi more effectively, make them multimedia. And you have control over your syllabus with Simple Syllabus, right? You can still move things around, you can still edit it. The one piece that's fixed, and this is really in response to a Northwest recommendation, is we want to populate those syllabi with the kind of official learning outcomes that faculty governing bodies approved, right? And that way we're following governance, right? We're publishing the learning outcomes that faculty approved. We are also sort of satisfying the Northwest gods. And so hopefully it'll help us with that. But we want to be responsive. We want to help faculty with this and try to be flexible. The other one is copy leaks, which was really not us deciding that. That's a state contract. So I know I'd heard that some of like the English faculty didn't love this tool, but it's what we have. I think what I would say also, as I look at Chris Blankenship, is that an alternative is also creating authentic assessments that prevent the need for plagiarism software in the first place. Is that right, Chris? All right, so, but that is the tool that's being rolled out. Let me move on here. Next, I just wanted to lay out some priorities for the year. So we have a year off from a strategic plan. Yay. It seemed to me that there is space for the Provost's office, for an academic affairs generally, to lead out on certain things. And so ideally, this is something I would have had the opportunity to workshop more with folks last year. I'm going to be honest, this is something that I put together relatively quickly over the summer. I think they reflect ongoing priorities that we have based on conversations I've had with a lot of folks, but I think the Provost's office needs to be organized and transparent in how it's working with faculty to achieve certain ends. So scheduling, we have a scheduling committee. David Brower, our director of scheduling, will co-chair that. And let me say is that there's going to be about 10 I'm going to run through. For many of them, we're in the process of trying to identify faculty co-chairs for these groups as well. I think it's really important that you have both a faculty co-chair and a director or a dean or something working together to lead out on these things. So improving scheduling to meet the goals of student success and college sustainability. Scheduling continues to be, I think we do a relatively good job of scheduling at this institution, but there's always room for improvement with our practices, with figuring out what are the right times, all of these things. So David and a faculty member will be leading out on that. We know that we continue to sort of need to improve our tenure evaluation process. This doesn't mean that we're going to revisit that appendix of the handbook and rewrite the whole thing again. I believe that we have there is sound. It's more about our own practices. So last spring, Adam led out on forming a group that will begin this fall to kind of look at things like, for example, the informal post-tenure review. We're discovering that maybe we're making that harder than it needs to be, that informal post-tenure review. Like that maybe is just a end-of-year conversation, a list of goals, a check-in, as it were, on way to the more formal post-tenure evaluation. So there are things like that that if we can just sort of agree, let's get on the same page, let's make this a little easier, let's work out the kinks, that maybe there's a little less stress involved in the tenure process. Assessment is a big deal. We have a new-ish Director of Learning Outcomes Assessment, Chris Blankenship. We're working on building a new kind of assessment group that will help us build an assessment for program-level learning outcomes. That's something that we got rightly dinged on by Northwest. We were doing a lot of course-level assessment, but the standard for Northwest is, are you evaluating learning in your programs? Are you looking at those program learning outcomes? And I think Chris has done enormous great work this year to kind of get that organized, working with departments and schools to kind of get that off the ground. Program prioritization, perhaps the least sexy phrase in the English language. Engage faculty. My goal this year, we did a round last year, right? And one of the pieces of feedback I heard from a couple of faculty is that it felt maybe a little remote to them and that they weren't sufficiently involved, and I think that that was a fair criticism. And so I've been talking with Rachel about how do we involve our existing curricular bodies in some of this prioritization work, sharing data with those folks and gathering their feedback as we move through that process of prioritizing programs. I would say the other end of program prioritization, the more fun part, is what new things are we building? You know, what are the sort of emerging programs? Curriculum is this living thing, right, that is responsive to a changing world. And it seems to me that there's, in a lot of areas at the college, an opportunity not only for maybe discontinuing a stale program, but building something new in its place. Generative AI. Identify best practices for responding to generative AI in our classrooms. This is becoming this thing that we're not sure what to do with. We're playing around with it, we're having fun with it, we're scared by it. This is going to be led by Zach Allred and a faculty co-chair, and kind of a think tank of sorts to sort of help the college understand what is some of the research saying, what are some of the best practices that we can adopt going forward. I briefly talked about student success teams. These are really led out by areas of study and really trying to figure out with our student affairs partners. I think there's been a lot of like what I would call, I think they call this in childhood development, parallel play. We've been in the parallel play stage in higher ed where we're like kind of playing alongside of each other but aren't totally like cognizant of what the other person is doing. And so I would like to get us beyond the stage of parallel play. Maybe these teams to build a structure whereby we're actually kind of working together and know what each other is doing and maybe not duplicating effort. The chair model. Dean Roderick Land introduced a chair model now 2 years ago, I think, so it's in its third year. It's considered a pilot, is my understanding. And so, and I'll just say, I think that there have been promising results. I'll just say that from the chair model in terms of the culture of that school, in terms of how faculty feel about their immediate academic supervisor, and I think there are things we can learn from that. And I think the tension that we got to sort of sort through is this something that we're going to do throughout the institution? Do we need a one-size-fits-all administrative model? These are questions that I think Roderick and a group are going to help us sort of figure out and ending, hopefully by January, February, some recommendations that we can then act upon by the end of the academic year. And then online teaching guidelines, and this is something that's been talked about for a handful of years. We discovered recently that Quality Matters courses actually have lower rates of retention. Yeah. And it's sort of counterintuitive, right? And I was talking to a handful of folks about this. What we think is happening in those cases is that high design sometimes results in low instructor presence. And that what we need, in addition to good design, it doesn't follow that QM is necessarily a bad thing, although I think there are alternatives out there. But alongside design, you need some shared understanding and best practices about what does it look like to engage students in online spaces. And so that's something that I'm going to bring to Senate. I'm asked Gavin and his team to produce a draft, and then I want to gather the feedback of folks from Senate and move forward with it. An academic affairs budget committee. We want to look at, we actually feel like we've been, I think in the last while, we haven't really taken a really deep look at our indexes and where we're sort of spending money, where we aren't. And we just want to kind of take a global look at are there areas that are over-resourced? Are there areas that are under-resourced? I mean, we're always asking for more money, and we should, but I think we also have to be really sort of thoughtful and responsible every year about shifting resources around depending upon what areas, need that support. And so we're going to take a look at that. And then finally, there's a few more things that we haven't quite formalized yet, but a prior learning council. And this is actually at the direction of the system office, of the Office of the Commissioner. We have a prior learning director, Andrea Tipton, who is awesome. And she will work with a group to oversee and advise operations of prior learning at Salt Lake Community College, along with our student affairs partners in that space. I meant by today to have a beautiful SharePoint site with all of this laid out, so that'll take another week or so, but I want to have some space where people can just see this work happening, and then over the course of the year, update folks when it's relevant on the progress we're making with some of these conversations. But this is sort of, I'm loosely calling it a plan for the academic year. Two more things. So finally, I just wanted to, and I struggled, and so this is going to be a bit extemporaneous, but I wanted to say something about just teaching and learning as a value at the college. It's what we do as faculty. It is the most important work at the institution, and I've sometimes been concerned, and I've been very open with the president about this, about the decentering of academics or the decentering of teaching and learning. I've been in meetings. I think David Hubert actually made this comment to me once. I remember. So I'm going to attribute this, students at home, attribution is important, to David Hubert. And he made the point that it feels like in some meetings, you can go the entire meeting and you can kind of play this mental game with yourself. Am I at an institution of higher ed or am I at a company? And you don't know, right? Like there would be nothing in the meeting to like signal that to you unless you already sort of knew going in. And so in whatever I can do this year to change that, I would like to do that, to sort of really make discussions around teaching, around our disciplines, around student learning, the center of what concerns us at this institution. It is, what I've said is students come to us for one reason. They come to us for our faculty, to take courses from our faculty in programs that lead to a credential, that lead to either workforce or to transfer. That is it. And everything else is ancillary to that. And so if that's not the center of what we're talking about, or if it's decentered, we have a problem. And I would also say that as I thought about like what are the values or truths about learning that sort of guide me, this isn't a comprehensive account of it, but I think about the fact that learning is social, learning is embodied, learning is temporal, it takes place over time. We learn best in diverse environments, and learning is difficult. And any so-called innovation that somehow tries to get around those truths, that tries to short-circuit them, that says you can take this pill and get a credential, right? Or you can accelerate learning in some magical way, or that you can sort of be isolated as a learner, that's not an innovation that I am interested in supporting. And let me end. We have a library scavenger hunt. So let me, Zach Allred, by the way, is our interim director of library services. John Glenn retired this last year. I still see John Glenn at Red Butte concerts, but Zach is doing a great job. And he came up with this idea. I think it's a great idea. So let's take this opportunity to reintroduce faculty to library services. And to that end, we have the scavenger hunt that will introduce you to those services and materials that can help you, your students, and demonstrate how the library is working to meet your community's ever-changing needs. So scan the QR code on the screen or visit libweb, L-I-B-W-E-B, .slcc.edu/scavenger. This will also go out in a provost message that I send out, hopefully tomorrow. Interested faculty will have 3 weeks to complete the hunt. You can work in teams of 3, and there will be prizes for the top 3 finishers, including a conference registration fee. That's cool. A subscription to the periodical of your choice, Darren's is teaching English in the Cheever College. I think he's encouraging a subscription to that. And a hosted meeting in a library space with refreshments. If you have questions, ask any of the librarians and they can help you out with this. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming back after the 75. And let's go have some food. Thanks.